morning, everyone. We're going to get going for this session today. I'm Mike Armstrong, Vice President and Area Manager for Ellis Don here in Ottawa. And we're happy to sponsor and introduce the General Contractors Leadership Panel session for this morning. Your speakers today, and maybe just raise your hand as I say your name, Hubie Splinter, Sean Lundy, Travis Grimes, Nathan Stewart, and Alessandro Garna.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Mike, and thanks to Ellis Don for graciously sponsoring this. It's a great event, great panel. Look forward to having a great session. Just before we get started, I'm just going to get everybody to introduce themselves again, just a little bit more, and a little more detail on each individual, each company. We got a broad range of contractors and different shapes and sizes, so it'll make for a great session. I'll just get started. I'm with Hubie Splinter with Graybeck Construction. We're a general contractor in Ottawa, probably on this panel, probably on the smaller side. We do a lot of renovation work, pre-qualification with hospitals, universities, institutional work, and a lot of renovation work. And I'll pass it on to Sean.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. My name is Sean Lundy, and I own MP Lundy Construction. And we're a team of about 40 people, so I think we're firmly in the mid-market of our industry, and we push about $75 to $100 million a year these days. Sort of an important market for us right now is long-term care, and we're still doing office work, so that's been strong for us as well. Yeah, I think if I want to just quickly share what's important to us as a company, it's really enhancing communication on our sites. So we've gone deep into the skill set of modeling, providing options for our clients to understand their projects better, and for us to be able to interface with consultants better. So that's kind of an overview of what we've been sort of pushing and thinking about as we go through our projects these days. Great to see you all.
Good morning, everybody. Lots of friendly faces in the audience today. My name is Nathan Stewart. I'm the Vice President of Operations for Ellis Don here in Ottawa. Ellis Don has, we reach the market across Canada, coast to coast, international work, some management work west. We are a general contractor as our core business. We also do a lot of other service lines like FM, energy and digital, just to name a couple, but the list goes on. But we are primarily a general contractor. I've worked in the Ottawa market since the late 90s, various capacities. I've spent a long time with Ellis Don, the last 20 years. It's been a great run. It's been a very exciting market in Ottawa. I think we've all enjoyed the benefits of growth and stability for the past few years, and hopefully that continues for the future. Really happy to be here this morning, and looking forward to some great questions from the audience.
Thank you, Nathan. So I'm Sandro Guarna with McDonald Brothers Construction. I'm the Vice President of Finance and one of the co-owners of the firm. And I would say, similar to Lundy and Lauren, we're more of a mid-market builder in the sort of $70 million range of work that we do. Our typical markets are right now, affordable housing is one of our biggest markets. Long-term care as well is, consistently hitting up there in terms of volume. And recreation centers is another market that we tend to favor quite a bit. And I would say in terms of what sets us uniquely apart is, and especially with affordable housing, we do a lot of sort of very energy efficient buildings, so passive house-like, or net zero ready, or those sort of green globes, those kind of commitments that a lot of owners are looking for, especially these days, because a lot of funding is based on those kind of green energy targets and meeting and exceeding those. So that's what MBC is all about, and happy to share my experience with and what we're seeing coming down the pipeline with the crowd here.
Morning. Travis Grimes with Lauren. Let's see, we're a mid-sized firm with about 100 employees. We've got offices in Ottawa, Toronto, and Calgary. Main focus is on ICI sector. We also do a bit of mid-rise. We run about 50 hourly employees, and as Dennis, who owns a company, would say, we're the largest not-for-profit GC in the country.
That's great. Thanks, guys. So just a little overview. We got the panel here. We're here for you guys, for the audience. We encourage you guys to participate. Any questions, just ask if you can raise your hand at any time. We did meet ahead of time. We are set up with a few topics that we can start the discussion on, and then as that goes, like I said, anytime, put your hand up and I'll take your questions. So I'm just going to start today by just saying, I'm going to ask these guys, when assessing a new opportunity, how do you assess the risks, such as SGCs, tendering conditions, and as far as technical requirements versus pre-qualification? So anybody want to jump on that? Go ahead, Nathan.
Well, maybe I'll start then. Is it done? There we go.
Jump right in.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to go too far down the rabbit hole, but I think the simplest answer is when we're assessing an opportunity and we're evaluating our pursuits, we're looking at the contract model, all the information that's readily available through RFPs or whatever contract documents or pursuit documents are provided. And it's very important that we are very detailed and meticulous in understanding precisely what those risks are. They could be as simple as liquidated damages. There could be all kinds of other things buried in supplementaries or other parts of the documents. It's really about knowledge and planning, understanding the project before you bid it, and then making those hard decisions or those informed decisions. They're not necessarily hard, but informed decisions about, do we want to pursue this or not? Is this good work or is this bad work? We have a saying in Elliston, no bad work. That really speaks to our approach when looking at pursuits.
Yeah, I'd say further, we evaluate for overall partnerships. Is the opportunity going to match our overall strategy? Is that going to build on our project experience and help leverage for future projects? Do we have available manpower that can take it on, that's got the right skill set that meets the project needs? Do we have any experience working with the existing consulting groups? What's their ability to pay is a big one too, comes up often. So those would be some items I'd touch on, Sean.
Yeah, and just not repeating, because everything is in line with what we look at, but we like to have a formalized go, no go meeting for every opportunity, and we've refined sort of that criteria that just get us to a decision as quickly as possible, because there's nothing worse than kind of spinning your wheels on the what ifs, and so that's something that we do. And from my perspective, I consider it probably one of the biggest responsibilities I have in the company is to make sure I choose the right client for us, because we offer a certain flavor of the what we can bring to the industry, and that doesn't fit for everybody. And so I'm just acutely aware of the fact that if I make a wrong decision, there's going to be a massive impact on the staff. The wrong client is going to directly impact the quality of life of the people working within the company. And so it's a very, very crucial moment in time for all of our companies to make that a very solid decision and a well-informed decision, even though a good part of that decision could be coming from your gut. I would say follow your gut.
That's a huge point.
Yeah.
It could impact it could impact the whole culture and the drive that your team has within each office, and then further at the project site itself. And it compounds on itself very, very quickly when it does go wrong. It does.
And a lot of that gut comes from, you'll get those documents, those upfront, RFP documents, and you can tell right away, if the SGCs are like 3 times the size of a regular contract, your first gut instinct is going to be like, okay, which lawyer got a hold of this, and got that project owner and really, balance all of the conditions in the owner's favor away from the GC. And you really have to think hard about like, what's that impact as a GC? What's that impact going to be to me, my team, and on our analysis of the risk? And if they're just going to constantly be, beating us down on all their conditions they've got in here. So yeah, we definitely evaluate that and evaluate the risk when we're bidding a job for sure.
That's great. Yeah, the SGCs are just, yeah,
Any project owners in here? We're going to pick on you a lot.
yeah. But
Can
even.
we stay on the subject of
Absolutely,
SGCs? Like, do
yeah.
you have?
I was going to say,
Yeah.
just to any of the contractors in the room as well, too, like the OCA, I've been on the standard practice committee of the OCA for many years, and the SGCs come up constantly, all the time. But to bring that up, I'd encourage you to bring it up, but to bring it up well ahead of time, as soon as you get the documents. If there's something you're not sure of, you're unclear about, the OCA will stand up on the behalf of the contractors and reach out to the owners or the clients and advocate to get changes made.
Yeah, and I would just put an appeal out to everyone in this room that we all carry a certain responsibility to our company, first and foremost. And if we sign contracts that are not fair, that's putting the company at risk, and that's going in the wrong direction as far as leadership goes. So as hard as it may seem sometimes to enter into that gray area or that dangerous territory of maybe not being accepted or perhaps disqualified for pushing back on something that you don't agree with, I think we really just need to keep growing and keep getting smarter as an industry in terms of being clear and communicating what is fair and acceptable to us and for the benefit of the project at the end of the day. A balanced contract is going to make it good for everybody, including the trades, which are so essential to the success of a job.
Yeah, like we've turned down jobs because we just couldn't, and jobs that, let's say, we do a lot of affordable housing. It could be an affordable housing project. It looks really good. It fits the mold of what we do. It fits the vision of what we're trying to achieve as a firm. And this is a job that we should be pursuing. And we just we can't reconcile what the owner is trying to push forward in terms of what they want and what we're willing to accept, and we've had to turn work away as a result of that. And I think it's important that we do make those critical decisions and not just accept, work for the sake of work. There's a lot of work out there, I think, for good contractors, and so picking and choosing is important in staying afloat, staying profitable, and keeping the whole project going.
That's great. Any questions on that? I'm gonna move on. If not, we're gonna.
Maybe I'll
Yep.
throw a question out there. I'm curious from the panel. Are the owners that you're creating these complex supplementals, how do you get ahead of that, right? Because when the RFP comes out, it's usually typically too late. And sometimes I feel that the owner might need to be educated a little bit better before the document. So maybe some suggestions for the crowd of how do we get ahead of it?
I think a lot of times what happens is when the documents come, I don't know if the owner is aware of the SGCs. Sometimes they may not be actually.
That's what I've noticed. Yeah.
They may not actually be aware of it. So the sooner that it is noticed and it is brought up, then the faster people can react to that and approach them.
Often it's written by a legal firm that's trying to protect the owner, and as an industry, we need to come together with the associations and bring that to various large owner groups and advocate for fairness. That's how we can drive some consistency across the board and create a level playing field for both owner groups and ourselves as GCs. Because if not, it's not going to progress our industry ahead at all. And you're going to end up with inflated pricing as a result of building the risk into each one of our bids.
Sorry, we have a question in the audience.
Sorry, I just wanted to ask, so do you guys as GCs talk amongst yourselves if you guys are all bidding on the same project and you don't like the contract model, where you say, let's collectively say, okay, we're not going to bid on this, and let's beat up on the developer?
You want the answer we're allowed to say, or the answer we're not allowed to say?
We can't come together directly, but that's why we have the association.
Yeah, that's why the association will advocate on behalf of the contractors. The contractors will communicate with the association, who can then gather all the comments and concerns and sometimes vet them ahead of time before meeting with an owner or a client. And I've met with many over the years, and they're open to the discussion, and they want to have fair and contracts for everybody. That's what I mean. But sometimes they don't realize, they may not understand the conditions that are being written into their documents.
And if they don't respond or don't care, then you're absolutely right. Like, I got a phone call yesterday from a fellow GC saying, I'm not bidding this job, and you take your chances and then helps you to evaluate, he's not bidding that, wow, maybe I need to really rethink this risk. And so, yeah, we do talk.
And to be clear, there's a process. So if we receive documents and we don't like those documents, those SGCs are seemingly one-sided and onerous, then there's a process. My estimator lets me know, I pick up the phone, and I get in touch with the GCAO, the General Contractors of Ottawa, and then there's a discussion that happens on that platform as a mechanism for trying to get a conversation going before the bids close.
Even if the time window from the time of RFP?
Yeah. For those that are volunteering on the GCAO, I've been there, but I really take my hat off because they have to drop what they're doing, and then they have to go and deal with this right away because of the timing factor.
And sometimes they're bidding that job too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And sorry, one last thing. Consultants are also really good advocates for us as well, and hopefully there's some consultants in here. Like if you're the architect and you look at what the client's trying to push as SGCs, and you're putting that in your RFP and you're pushing that out, you'll know right away, like, oh, the industry's not going to like this. And we've had that before, where a number of architect firms, before it even goes out, will say, hey, hey, OCA, take a look at these SGCs, let me know what you think, so I can inform the owner, kind of wink, wink, nudge, nudge, before it goes out to the GCs and we start seeing problems.
There's also bringing some of the risk forward through the Q&A process. So identifying those terms that are just not amicable for our side and making everybody aware of it up front. That's something that there's a strategy around that, obviously, during bid time, but it's something that helps level the playing field a bit.
I'll just add one other thing to this. What we're talking about here is communication with our client group. And doing that in a value-based way, and not in simply a complaining or pointing at something we don't like way. If we're communicating with our clients and explaining to them the effects and consequences and how it affects them and their value within their intent and their program, that's a meaningful way to communicate and challenge those things without feeling like it's just being directly challenged. What does this mean for you, and not just what does it mean for us? And that's important, I think, in all aspects of what we do and how we communicate those things. It should be value-based and include everybody in those conversations.
Can I
Yeah, sure.
I just love that point so much. And I just want to bring an example. So conversations I've had in the past when it comes to liquidated damages, I have taken this approach that Nathan pointed out to just communicate with the owner and paint the picture of what it looks like from our side to paper a project in such a way that is going to protect us in the event of a liquidated damages claim. And so I ask the client at that point, do you want me to put my team's energy towards solving the issues that are coming up on your project? And believe me, every project has issues. Or do you want my team to be putting the majority of their efforts into protecting ourselves? And it generally unfolds into a real conversation at that point.
That's great. Okay, we'll move on. I got a couple other things here, and I won't get into the resourcing and staffing. We've talked about that, but I want to touch on AI, and just to get the panel's perspective on AI and what they see, what currently coming down the pipe, or anything.
Yeah. Okay. I'm super interested in AI, and I'm following some of the trends in the industry. I'm asking ChatGPT how AI is going to impact how we work, and there's always sort of interesting things. So I consider models like ChatGPT as an extension to my brain, and I've decided to make it available to everyone in our company and challenged everyone in our company to think about how AI can make them more effective in their role. And so far, it's really interesting to see. It's like other technology. Some people are quicker at adapting. Others, are afraid of it or don't trust it. But at a practical level, you know, I'm using ChatGPT to help me understand contracts or read contracts faster and help me zero in on areas of a contract that I really need to pay attention to. So I'm using it as a bit of a shortcut, although my lawyer would hate to hear me say that because there is, of course, some risk involved. But it is all about, you know, this idea of becoming more efficient. I don't know if anyone has heard of this software. We've looked at it, but we haven't bought it. It's called Document Crunch. It's a software. It's out of the U.S., I believe, but it's specifically for construction, and it's an AI tool that gives your team. It goes through your contract, and it gives your team a playbook for the contract, which I found super interesting, and it got me excited about it. But we're still kind of taking a look.
I think we're in the infancy of where tech is going. Right now, there's some great efficiencies that that we see being implemented, especially on the document administration side. That's going to save a huge amount of people hours at project startup and closeout. But on the AI side, I'm going to a conference tomorrow. I won't say where it is because half the room will be pretty upset at me because it's south of. But
Whatever.
yeah, boo, I know.
Line on it.
I'll be okay. I think I'll be
might
okay.
never
I
be
went
back.
across a couple of weeks ago. So, but I think that it's going to play a major role in productivity increase, our staffing, and streamlining projects. I think that there'll be dramatic efficiencies in pre-construction and collaboration with all the various stakeholders of projects as they work through some of those challenges. And I just see nothing but positives in terms of AI in our industry over the next. It's going to be with us forever now. So.
Agree with both of all the panelists here on that front. I think if we're to be honest about construction as an industry, we've often lagged in adopting new technologies. It's a truth. I think we ought to recognize that. We also should recognize the truth that AI and the effective technologies and the benefits of new technologies in construction, we don't know the limit of that yet, but we need to find out. The construction industry is growing. If I'm to be a little bit personal and speak a little bit about myself, I consider myself a little bit of a Luddite. I'm not an early adopter. I know this about myself. I also know that that's not a perfect fit for the industry. And we need to embrace the early adopters and find that balance where we are responsibly using AI to augment our business, to help with productivity and efficiency. That is also connected to resources, which is, a challenge for all of us. Do we use AI today to make all of our decisions? I don't think. I'm certainly not comfortable with that yet. There's a lot more dialogue and learning and understanding and planning on that front. But I will say it's exciting. We have a group that's dedicated to exploring new technologies constantly and engaging with firms that we can partner with where we see potential benefit to help our work and help the industry in general. We intend, that is a strong effort, and we intend to continue that. It's important. We're heading there. We're there now, if we're to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, and I'll add, I think it is important. Like, a lot of us win work by being low, and I know that that's not always everyone's favorite thing to say, is that, we got to be low bid if we want to, win this work. And even in scenarios where there is an element of, technical competence, there's always an element of, what's your price? And you have to appreciate and respect that. And what better way to be low bid than to be able to do more with less? And that's, I think, what the cornerstone of AI is in terms of how can we leverage this to get more out of our people and be able to build faster or get our reports faster or be able to do more with fewer resources, less overhead that we have to charge back to the client and keep our costs low. So I think that there is an onus on everyone to sort of look at that value of that technology and really translate that into winning more work. So, yeah.
Robert, yes?
Is anyone at the OCA or OCGA looking into this? Is there any committees that actually, because it's coming down so fast that we need some sort of guidance, that someone can put a committee together, the OCA or the GCA, and say.
Yeah,
someone spearhead?
there's nothing formal yet, but it's been in discussions, but yeah, for sure.
You guys are probably all looking at different
Yeah.
programs and stuff, so
Yeah.
trying to bring them together to see which are consistent. Do you have a program that you
Yeah.
talk to the Cruncher?
Robert, I really believe that you're on the right track. I think there's going to be times in the very near future when those kinds of discussions are going to naturally happen. I'm actually curious, is there anyone in this audience that is using 3D photometrics like Matterport or OpenSpace? Yeah, so we have a few.
You got a ways to go.
So that's an interesting piece in terms of AI, because do you mind if I ask you, how are you using Matterport or OpenSpace right now?
Already asking one level two more than I know.
Okay, fair enough.
I know my company is.
Fair enough. So basically, what I'm talking about right now is it's just a 3D camera that captures the built environment, and you can do these scans on a weekly basis, and basically the camera has a way of capturing all of everything in a 360, and then it knits together all of those images so that you can walk through a building that's under construction as if you were using Google Street View. It's the exact same kind of thing. So what I think is interesting, and what we should probably all be looking at in terms of artificial intelligence going forward, is that's data. Those images are data that can be interpreted and understood by artificial intelligence in a way that can help us, I think, better analyze progress week over week, and then give us analysis on what where the project needs to focus, in comparison to how we're proceeding on our schedule. So I think that there's, it's maybe a little bit of a ways off, but the fact that some companies are already using 3D photometrics, I believe that's going to come into play, and I would just encourage you to, if you're interested, look at a firm called Build Dots. Build Dots. They're a company that seems to be going in this direction, and they may be able to help us in the future better analyze how things are going on our projects beyond what humans are doing right now.
I think, though, to that point as well, it's going to create more transparency in terms of the progress on site with owner and design groups that we're engaged in, so that you're keeps you honest in terms of your progress and scheduling and quality management as well with the 3D
And it should
cameras.
make it easier to get billings approved, right?
That's what
It's
my
like
hope.
it's either done or it's not.
Yeah. Yes, Robert.
Well, you may ask about the OCA, because I'm probably the old guy in the room here, but remember early 80s, we looked at fax machines. It took us 5 years for the industry to use the fax machine. And when you ask who's using AI in here, I didn't see a lot of hands here. You guys are using it. And if we're going to expedite this, maybe the OCA is the one to take, or the GCA to take the position, we need to get a team together and expedite. Because when you ask who's using AI, I didn't see a lot of hands here. But we've been hearing this for 2 years now. I know, if I write a speech or something, I'll do this chat. It used to take me 5 hours to do a speech, it takes me a half hour. So I know, in speeches, of course, I don't know, Sean, what all you use it for, but you said a few minutes ago that this is going to be a huge, drastic change. And I remember when the OCA took the stance of getting a huge buy on fax machines back in the 80s. You're talking about document crunch and whatever else. If we want to get this industry going faster than what I see here, someone should take a committee and get this going. Because it sounds like you four are all using it right now.
Yeah.
But I didn't see a lot of hands here.
Well,
Suzanne is.
I just want to address Robert, because it's a great question, but the hard part for an organization like the OCA, there's no standardization of AI that's going to be applicable to each of
Yeah.
these.
But you have to take a stance, so you've got to start somewhere.
I agree, but I think the stance changes every day right now. That's how fast it's going. Like AI, the number of tools that are available it changes literally on a daily basis.
It's still a good idea, though.
This room is using AI. I didn't see any hands.
I think they're still trying to understand it.
Yeah.
Well, let me provide another hand.
Yeah.
Then
As well.
to build off some of the previous comments made, like, and I think BuildDots is a perfect example. That, you know, that's a bit of software that the Elliston has used. We've used it on major projects. It is enormously powerful. There is power in data. It tells you things much faster than you would normally get through manual means. So that's just one example.
Percentage of efficiency you see, like if you look at what you did before and what you're doing with BuildDot, how much has that changed? It changed you 20%, 50% more efficient? Like, it's a huge number. I'm just trying to get a feel.
When you say efficient, what are you referring to?
Staff time, the accuracy.
Well, imagine a few things. I don't know the perfect answer to that, but imagine a person collecting all that data manually. And then imagine a person taking that data, comparing it to a schedule, and comparing it to a 3D model, and connecting all of these things to create relationships and more information. How much ductwork is installed on a floor, just to use a simple example. Think of the labor that goes into that exercise, and then compare that to the labor of collecting this data and have AI answer all that questions for you. So it is enormous. It's very powerful. Yeah, and some of the software that analyzes contracts and other things, incredibly useful. It plows through that. Now, should we trust it to make all the decisions? No. It should augment and support our decisions, but it helps get us there quicker. And even other technologies like MC things, and the list goes on, collecting more data, environmental data on site.
Back in the 80s, I'm the old guy here, but I started the education program at the OCA back in the 80s. And we took a visit to PCL. They had these Sony DVDs for teaching. And so they showed me the book of who was using it. The pharmaceutical was this big, aerospace was this big, and construction was this big. In other words, construction is very small, very behind because we're so fragmented. So the biggest challenge we have in our industry is trying to pull things together and work as a team. Now it's difficult. You've got 4 competitors up there. I'm sure you guys don't talk about what software you use, but the reality is build zero, whatever it is something we should be looking at. And maybe the OCA should look at some kind of a trial, but maybe, again, if it's something that's a good package to buy a bunch of packages to sell to the OCA members.
I think.
I'm only saying that it's coming down so fast, as Nathan said. You didn't give me a number. Let's say it's 50% more efficient.
I think beyond the actual software itself is more just like like buckets of what it can do, right? So like I'll give you an example. Like I think for like estimating, you could probably have an AI software do your takeoff for you, and like, you know, and think about all the time and all the hours that go into doing that. And can you imagine if like you put the drawings in there and it just spits everything out and it's like, oh my God, it's done. And it used to took me like hours, and now it's done. And same thing. Well, hey, and I'm not picking on the estimators. I know there's quite a few of them in here. They're like, think about I'm in finance. Think about my accounting department. Okay, you have AP automation now. Your invoice comes as a PDF right into my accounting software and automatically gets generated, gets the project number, your invoice number, everything. It's automatically in there. The PM approves it, it's done. Like that used to be how many project accountants going through, you know, all of your projects, and now AI has replaced all of them.
How about submittal logs?
Or yeah, submittal logs. You throw the submittal log in there, and there you go. All your submittals are pre-populated. This is what you need.
This is what the banks have done. They're hugely automated now. And we're just starting.
So I agree with you. So in terms of like a board, maybe it's just buckets of, you know, estimating as an example, accounting, project management, and how AI can upend all those things. Sorry, there's some questions here.
Yeah, Keith? Oh, sorry.
So at the ONBA Education Group, we're actually working with construction companies on training their teams on that changeover from doing what they're doing right now and where AI can come in, and we're actually helping design custom AI solutions for teams. So yeah, there is a technology component, but there's also a human component, right? And while I understand that AI is meant to, you know, be more efficient, but there's at the end of the day, we're still humans, right? Yeah. So there is a human aspect to this transition. And when we work one-on-one with companies, that's when you truly get the real essence of how a company can better adopt. So when the efficiencies you're talking about, it's only as good as what kind of adoption you're getting from the people who work there, right? So and we're seeing great uptick. While we're not really working with OCA on standardizing the training, but there is an opportunity that we can do that. And we're also working with government grants to help offset the cost of this, right? So we'd love to work with more of you, with more, with the association if we can, on kind of streamlining this transition.
So if I understand you, the solution is not the same for everybody?
It's not.
No, okay.
And the custom design and making sure that people are comfortable. I mean, you talked about finance. I can assure you a lot of your finance team members are saying, that's not right, that's not how it's properly set up and all of that. So we help manage the process, the transformation, and it's very powerful when done right. So
Got to frame the change, or else people aren't going to adapt to it.
Exactly.
I think there was another question, Keith, to just,
Yeah, it was more of a point.
Yep.
You know, AI is only as good as the information you're feeding it. You know, myself and Sean got up this morning and entered in a question into a chat GPT, what hairstyle will I have today, We're going to get very different answers. So, it's important to know that, it's in the eye of the beholder and what you will upload. However, we use a program, it's called Provision, and it's based on an upload of RFP documents or just contractual documents and SGCs. Now, each company can tailor which SGCs are more of their litigious milestones or thresholds than others. We all have different factors which, are bigger risk profiles for each of us. So in terms of comparing that, it will spit out a risk analysis, which isn't a full legal review, but it's a first pass, and it's useful. It's the stuff that, to Sean's point earlier about identifying the ones we all as an industry don't want to accept. That's where it's helpful, where you have that contingency. But again, just the AI, it's only as good as the information you feed. So
I think that's a great point, Keith, and to build off a couple of previous comments. Let's just take a moment to think about the value, the potential value of our data. We all have companies, we have industries, enormous amounts of data. What AI can do that normal people struggle to do is use that data and extract useful predictability from, call it telling the future. It can look at past performance on hundreds or thousands and millions of different data points and start to shine a light on, okay, what could this possibly look like? Are we using or maximizing the value of that data that we all have?
I just love this notion that in the industry that we're working in, what's true is we're constantly making decisions based on limited information. Because our clients are paying us to execute. They're paying us to make progress. And so we don't have the luxury of analyzing data to death before we make a decision. We have to go. And the most effective people in our companies are the people that are really good at analysis and then execution. And so I think, really what we're touching on here in terms of the usefulness of AI, at least as far as we can see right now, is accelerating this ability to get us to a place where we can make a decision. And getting information from so many different data points makes it conceivably possible to move the needle in the direction that the decision you're making is going to be right. And what we've all seen in our companies is that we've got really good people making decisions based on limited information, and sometimes those decisions are wrong. And that's okay. We have to move forward, and sometimes it's an opportunity not only for one person to learn, but the whole team to learn and just keep going. So I think that, one of the silver linings of AI is the idea that we'll get to better decisions, and that does not, for a minute or a second, exclude the human component, which I take a little bit of solace.
all right, I think we've killed AI. So we'll move on, and I don't know if I'll say the word tariff, and elephant in the room. Yeah, we'll just get everybody's perspective on tariffs, like how they dealing with it currently, or indirectly, directly, or coming down the pipe, or dealing with owners?
I don't see anybody grabbing the microphones here, so maybe I'll just throw myself to the wolves first. And not going down a rabbit hole on everything related to tariffs and all the details, but I think it's important as businesses and an industry that when we're managing tariffs and the dynamic nature of it, that we start from a point of understanding and planning. Knowing and taking the time to understand what it is we're faced with, and that's going to be often a really hard question that we don't answer alone. Consulting with our clients. What is your understanding? What are the relief mechanisms, or how do you understand the relief mechanisms within your contracts? Do we have a common understanding? Start to mitigate those impacts. Set expectations with the clients. What is your understanding of appropriate substantiation of a tariff cost? What is your understanding of a tariff? Do you have an appreciation of peripheral effects with inflation and other market instability? In coming to that understanding on a values-based discussion with your client first, taking that information and then managing ourselves and our subtrades and the rest of the industry, and just keeping that feedback loop going. At the end of the day, we're all in this together. And I think that's how I'll start this discussion.
Yeah.
Happy to hand that one over.
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's a really tough one. We're all experiencing this Groundhog Day, where we get up, we look at the news, and it's something else, right? Every single day. And the questions are coming from our clients as to how is this going to impact me, right? There's that. And so the way I interpret this is uncertainty. It's just propagating uncertainty. And uncertainty is never good in our industry. It's never helped us. It's never moved us in the direction we want to move in. So I want to hear from Michelle. Go ahead.
How are you managing the uncertainty?
Yeah, you pick it up.
Communication. Yeah, very, very upfront communication. As often as you can and as clear as you can. And I think that's really the best thing that you can do is, the second they started announcing this, I think every one of my clients was like, we need to have a meeting right away so we can talk about this. And it's like, yeah, and they're like, what's the impact? And it's like, well, hold on there, he just paused it, yesterday, and now it's back on again, and who knows? So, I think communication and keeping those lines open, and that goes for everybody in the construction pyramid too, from suppliers to subtrades all the way up, and as early as you can, as often as you can, in terms of giving us support. We're awarding contracts 30 days, 60 days, and if in some point in that day, your supplier is all of a sudden, it's not this price anymore, it's actually gone up, and this is why, and it's not even tariff related, it's because we slowed down production because of the tariffs, or something indirectly related, or anything for that matter. Giving us that feedback as soon as possible helps us have that conversation with an owner and mitigate that risk, because at the end of the day, the owners want certainty, they want cost certainty, and that's what we want to provide them. That's why we're like, we can do that, all of us, and then of course, you get to the point where you're in an extremely uncertain time, very similar to COVID, where how do you provide that cost certainty to the owner when we don't know the answer to that question, and that ball is moving all the time, right? So I think communication is the key here.
One other point that we talked about before, though, is that it's bringing us all together as a community and as a country, and it's now starting to shatter barriers between the provinces, and hopefully enabling labor to move around provincially, especially with our neighbors to the east and north. So there's so much volatility, though, like we keep saying the same thing. There's so much volatility day to day that none of us really understand where the buck's going to stop and where it's going to settle out. So to your point, engaging with the trades as much as possible, that's what initiative we've been doing. And then communicating that back to the owner groups to just be as transparent as we can, so we work together through it.
And I'd just like to quickly add, because I really feel the need to answer you in some fashion, Michelle, just in terms of maybe stating the obvious, some low-hanging fruit here. We have had a couple of small wins on our construction management deals where we are early on in the stage of planning and design. And so there is an opportunity for us to engage with suppliers and figure out how can we take this piece of equipment that we're purchasing out of the US and buy it in Canada. Is it manufactured in Canada? Is there some way to limit the exposure to tariffs? That's kind of an obvious one, but we have had some small wins in the office in the last couple of weeks.
Question?
Is there a point where the contractor's locked down and the material can't be changed? Because we're getting calls from people who want to take a look at a Canadian manufacturer versus an American manufacturer. And we're already in the contract. Of course, what we're running into now is because there's less American product coming up, the Canadian manufacturers are now starting to get backed up because they're starting to get overwhelmed with the amount of product, which is going to hurt your industry as much as our industry. So I guess the point, there needs to be, a lot of communication on, and I assume that you're doing that, but we're getting probably 25% of our questions a day now is based on where is the product made and can we substitute it. And it is a complicated thing because if we look at, for example, we have projects now that are on American product that are still going ahead, but all of a sudden the transport company doesn't have the return transport to the States, so all of a sudden your freight's gone up twice on that material because all of a sudden we aren't getting it at a good freight price. So I'm just 1% of the product. There's so much of that. I know I was talking to Mike Coletti last week and he's saying steel conduit, most of it comes from China. So far that's not an issue, but who knows going forward. I mean, it's the bouncing ball is every day, you know. And how do you guys deal with it? I mean, I call you Nathan and say, by the way, I can't get that U.S. product anymore. You're going to have to use this manufacturer, but it's going to be 6 months late.
Hard to directly answer that question, but here's what I will offer. The sooner that information is disseminated, the better. Time is our friend in terms of planning mitigations. Seeing the risk is the first step to managing the risk. So that's one thing that we can all do for each other to help each other out. Not a perfect answer to your question, Robert, but that's what I'll offer.
Because you can model that for the client, right?
Job that we are supplying, that we kept going after the general contractor and the architect, and they said, we need to pick this product. He was 6 months late picking up the product. Now he wants the product 2 months earlier. Is that a possibility? Absolutely not. So there needs to be more, I think, as generals, you need to be aware that if you're looking at large commodities, like brick or masonry, you need to make that decision much earlier, especially in this market. Especially in this market. It was like that in COVID, or this is even worse than COVID. And it's getting worse. So the generals need to take a look at those big commodities and say, have we procured it?
Yeah, no, for sure. Early procurement is important, and prepaying and procuring a lot of items that you know you're going to be using, just so that you have it and you know that you have it and it's secured. Not always the ideal situation and not always possible. And you have owners saying, "Well, I'm not paying for it." Okay, well, do you want to build this thing or not? So but that is often the conversation you have with them. You say, listen, we can get it to you. It's going to cost more because it's coming across the U.S. Would you rather pay for a premium to have it now, or would you rather have it in 6 months from now and have it cheaper? And those are the conversations you can only have whenever you have the information and you have that communication, right? You can't make a decision and open that decision up. And in some cases, you're right, where the owner's like, let me think about it. Okay, well, time's ticking here, you have to make a decision.
You can imagine this project that we're supplying and the brick is coming 6 months late, how that affects windows and everything else. So the owner is all of a sudden looking at a delay, only because he couldn't take the time to make the decision on the product that needed to be ordered at the time. So I'm just saying, just a small item here, but.
Yeah, it's a microcosm of everything that we're seeing on major construction projects, right? And I know in COVID, I think Transformers was a big one where, you had to basically order it a year in advance, otherwise you weren't getting it. So those are some of the items and elements that I'm sure there's going to be more as we go, right? And you have to have those conversations with owners. But again, the communication where you're getting that feedback where you're saying, hey, listen, what you expect here, this is going to take you like 16 months to get this, that you need to have that information as soon as possible so you can report that back to the owner and say, listen, how are we going to do this? Do you want to go with another? Do you want to redesign it? What can we do? This other transformer or alternative is actually cheaper, and it doesn't take as long to get here because it's available. Is that something you want to consider and redesign? And maybe you pay for the redesign, but you save that time, right? So without the information, you can't make a decision. Go ahead.
The question?
Just to add to that on communicating with subs, we quoted, or I worked with Stephen with Ocean Steel, we quoted a 2,200 ton project on Friday, and we submitted it with a walking speed and a running speed, and here's the prices that reflect that. So some of the people in the room know that there's not a mill in Canada, that rolls wide plan shapes. So the fastest, we're always dependent on the US, but here's that kind of faster schedule, but it's going to be hit by tariffs like as of today. But then the walking speed, you wouldn't have tariffs by sourcing offshore, but you're going to have a 16-week lead time to get that from local suppliers. So we bid it two ways. Here's your price with tariffs included if you want to meet that schedule for this summer, or if you want to start in the fall, we can look offshore and it wouldn't be subject to tariffs. So that's what the structural steel industry is doing. If anybody wants to talk about it after, that's what how Ocean Steel is combating it.
It's great information. Yeah, for sure. There's a question over here? Yep.
Yeah, sorry. So it seems that China is the big culprit here, and that's who Trump's going after with all these tariffs more than anything. And it seems like Trump's constantly changing his mind from one day to the next. And automotive is, okay, now you've got tariffs, now you don't, blah, blah, blah. At any point, do you guys sit there and go, you know what, maybe let's not be knee-jerk like he is and just do nothing and just wait it out, because tomorrow may be very different from today if we're talking about what if 6 months from now.
I was wondering if that name was going to come up. So thank you for bringing it. I think there is an element of, it's not so much wait and see. You have to spend some time thinking about what could happen next and the different scenarios. This is really challenging because there are 100 different scenarios. It is unpredictable. But we need to be thinking about what those are. What are the most likely ones? And there's a lot of guesstimating in there. And start to think down those rabbit holes and what that could mean in terms of our planning for risk mitigation. So that is a very challenging dynamic of this thing.
So you're planning, but you're not making any decisions right now.
So sorry, to Sean's point, on some of the projects where we're in pre-construction phase, we're making decisions to change to non-US products. So that's being done with selected owner groups, and they've decided to move forward with those changes. But you like to Nathan's point, you've got a plan. You've got a plan for what could come down the line, and we can't just sit on our hands and wait till it hits us slap in the face. So by being transparent, communicating out to the trades, to our partners, and then giving them options, and then making a decision, the best informed decision you can based on the data you currently have at hand.
So just to quickly step back, this is just another layer of risk mitigation, right? And that's what we're doing. That's what we're paid to do is identify risks on a project and demonstrate how we are going to mitigate them on a timely basis. And above everything else, we have to recognize that every one of our clients has unique needs. And sometimes the need to open on a particular day is going to far outshine what a 25% tariff is going to do. So as long as you're having that conversation and have the wherewithal to provide the data for the owner to make an informed trade-off decision, which is what owners do, right? They can't have it all in construction. They're making trade-off decisions constantly. This is just another version of that. And I think the closer we are in terms of being in lockstep with what the owner needs, what the project needs, it can become a relatively quick conversation. Are we going to hold off? Are we going to go at a walking speed? Or is the money at the end of the day telling us that we need to finish on time as planned as soon as possible?
Just one more behind you, Robert, sorry. Yep.
Yeah, I have an observation and a question. So some of you are learning who I am. We work with owners a lot. I find there's a massive disconnect between the data that the consultants have on material availability, equipment lead times, and what in your chairs you have. So our advocacy is always to get the contractor involved as early as possible, because we mitigate most of the issues if you're involved early. I see that not happening a lot across the board. It happens on big projects. Often on small projects, the idea is we don't need to talk to the contractor until we go to tender. By the time you go to tender, all the equipment's already spec'd, the materials are already spec'd. So how do you, as an industry, and maybe it's an association question, get better transparency with the consultants on the data that you have on equipment availability, lead times, materials, all of those things? Because architects and engineers and all the consultants are making decisions without your input. It's costing the owner more money and causing problems, and you guys get blamed for it. So that to me is a major problem.
Yeah, I would encourage the contract format. So like a construction management format definitely allows for that a lot better. You can bring in a general contractor or construction manager earlier on in the pre-construction phase, and you can have them have those conversations with the architect and the engineers and help guide the design process so that you can make those selections and say, hey, you picked all these, US-based products. There are Canadian alternatives, and they're probably cheaper. We recommend this. We've seen this on this project. That's where we can help guide that design. So that maybe is a conscious effort from the owner and maybe the consultant when they're guiding the owner on what contract type to be using. Consider that construction management is maybe a better, especially in these uncertain times, allows for more of that, dialogue and improve your outcomes versus, if you go to CCDC2, you're going to get what that time of tender price is, and it's going to be that date. And to your point, do you wait and see? Do you plan? Well, CCDC2 is on that day. This is what my quotes are as they're coming in. That's what the price is, and that's what they're pricing in the risk whenever they provide the quote, as it is on that day. So that's kind of the difference. Whereas in construction management, you can guide that process a little bit, and maybe we don't tender that second phase. We only tender the building, the excavation and the foundations and stuff, and we can work on the building envelope as we're sort of working through that pre-construction and early construction phases.
Justin, just as an answer to your question, this disconnect that you're talking about is a fundamental challenge that we all deal with in the industry, and I call it silos, right? It's everybody's sort of focused on their own thing, and when you actually get into a conversation that's team-wide, early on, amazing things happen, right? Like there are certain things that your consultants just know, and there are certain things that your consultants don't know, but we can get the answer to them either just through our own experience, or we can talk to a trusted trade in a particular, but you have this unique position in the industry where you're talking to owners very early on. So I would turn it around and ask you to have the conversations with the clients that you're dealing with about the importance of breaking down silos as a way of making their projects more successful. I think you've been able to do that in many cases. But it's a point for everybody in the room. That's ultimately, if we can do that, if we can really collaborate team-wide, outcomes are going to be better, pretty much guaranteed.
Yeah, 2 more minutes.
I think there'd be a benefit as well for our association, the Architectural and Engineers Association, to Sean's point with silos, to be getting together regularly and discuss these challenges as an overall building industry or infrastructure industry. I don't sit on the association board. I'm not too sure how frequently they meet, but I think that could be one way to address it. And then further, early engagement between the GC, CM, owner groups, and the consultants before there's even a contract in place to just talk about the project. talked about its execution, how they think that they're going to be specifying different products, and just have an open discussion about it and be transparent with one another and give the right feedback.
Okay. Well, I'm with you, Robert.
Follow up with this gentleman and Sean and
Travis.
The disconnect. I'm just, right now, my company has never seen as much work on the books ever that we have right now. And the tower cranes that are going up in this town are gonna be over 70, I think, by the time there's a lot of work up there. So when I talked about disconnect, we don't deal with the owners, we deal with the general and the architects. But you as leaders in your firms should get the information down to people that things have to be moving much quicker. And again, as I said earlier, commodities have to be shipped. I mean, masonry not arriving for 6 months is a huge problem. So these things I can see coming unless people, and this project that I just spoke of is a main general contractor in this town who the project manager down below didn't realize the importance of it, and he sat on it for 6 months. So you as leaders need to get down and talk to your project managers and everything, and say, look, this needs to be looked at now. And as you talk to suppliers or architects, and again, architects, and one of the main architects in this town was the architect, and he dragged his feet. I know him well, and I said, hey, the reality is that project's going to be held up. In a month, 2 or 3 months, what's that cost to the general and to the owner? And that's just one major project I know.
Right.
So it's got to start,
Yeah,
communication's
absolutely.
got to happen more.
For sure. One last question, because we can't leave without giving the consultant a little time here. John?
Thank you. I think, if we talk about the Auto Construction Association, OCA, the Auto Construction Association is supposed to envelop the entire industry, which would include the architects, the engineers, and everybody. So I think it's a perfect statement to say that one of the reasons why I got onto the board at the OCA is for exactly this reason. Sean, you talked about these silos that are constantly up. I'd like to see a time when those silos are torn right down and we can work a lot more cohesively together for these kinds of issues that we've got. You're right, the architects, the engineers, they know things, and you guys know things. Together we can know a whole lot of things, I guess is my point. So,
For sure. That's great. Thanks, John. That's great. Well, thanks to the panel, and thank you guys in the audience, and I'll just turn it back over to Mike for a second.
Hey, thanks, everyone. I think that was a great discussion, great dialogue that needs to keep going in the industry to help progress it. On behalf of the OCA and our gift sponsor, CM Electric, I just want to thank you again. Appreciate your time. Come out and speak with us today, and there's a gift for you at the right of the stage. So thanks, everyone, for coming. Appreciate it.